Yeah, we can start about talking about you was right there.
Yeah, I know she's gonna go to a
I would say that it is.
Need somebody takes notes, but he needs to do a roll call too.
Because,
Let me see if I can go.
if you think it's snacky, in one of those billions, getting 8 of them is even more difficult. And costly. Oh my God. Oh, now how much it costs us? Oh, one billion is cheaper than 8.
I'm gonna go share with the person next to me because we have an inactive precinct here, so I'm not doing the
Your online audience is waiting on you.
There's a person's name in
Everybody working with us?
there.
Yep. The online audience is waiting on you guys to start. 12:51. 6 minutes late. Started. Push ups. You're live.
Huh?
You're live.
I'm live. Well, live's always here. Officially, I know we're running late. We've got a couple of our members over in resolution, presenting resolutions. We don't have anything to vote on, so I don't think we necessarily need a quorum for anything. But we can talk. I have some for us to talk about. Yay! Oh, actually, you know what? You know something right quick. Okay, you got this. You wrote it and I said, yeah. I think I'm sure. I have it on my. Mondo wanted us to say, okay to this, and then it came to I started it, and I found her for some, she inserted the second, therefore, but yeah, if it doesn't matter what I'll be happy to. Okay.
Over your head.
Yeah. Okay, so we can put our blessing on it. I guess. I don't know what we're trying to do a formal vote. I don't know. How many?
No, it's a resolution. Do you want me to tell it?
Yeah.
There's a story behind it.
Let's go ahead and nobody else has our role. Okay. Yeah. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. LP committee, thank y'all so much for being here. Thank you to guests. Thank you for closing that door. I opened it because it was so freezing cold in here, and I did turn up the AC. It was sitting on 65. No, I turned it up. Yeah, right. All right, we have got 3 main things on our agenda today, and I apologize for not sending one out ahead of time, but we have kind of a little emergency one first that I'm going to let Tanya tell you about. Todd is over in resolutions because he's presenting a resolution, and so we will wait for him to call our roll, I guess, when he gets back. But in the meantime, I think we can talk about this informally, and so I'm gonna let Tanya, tell us.
Absolutely. Actually, I was gonna give everybody kind of a heads up about what to expect tomorrow, about this resolution if it should come to the floor, because it's so important. I feel like I'm talking.
Stand in front of us.
Yes, that's where I was going. I felt weird standing.
Yes, yeah.
Tanya in the round.
So, yeah. So, I was talking to Dion, I think it was like Tuesday, and I asked her what was going on with, in the regular session, Representative Schofield wrote what we're calling an election trigger bill, and it would actually, it's legislation that would protect Texas elections and our laws against federal government overreach. If you remember HR 1 and now HR 4, they're coming for us. And if we don't have protection in our law, codified in our law, everything that we've worked for to ensure election integrity is for naught, because they're going to take over. So, Representative Schofield filed another bill. Actually, I like this one better than the one he filed in the regular session. And he has, as of Thursday, he had 71 Republican representatives signed on to that bill.
Wow.
Yes. So Senator Hall filed SB 82 that's similar to that. And I was surprised to see that there are no senators signed on to as of last time I checked. It is House Bill 19. So anyway, long story short, you know, I was like, oh my gosh, we need a resolution that the state party supports this trigger bill, because I can't tell you during the regular session how many times we were told that there wasn't an appetite to pass legislation like this to protect our elections. So I think this would give our legislators that are signed on to the bill a little boost. I know we only have a little more than a week left of this special session, but y'all, this is a major piece of the puzzle for election integrity reform in Texas. So, yeah.
Okay, can I read that one? Yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So you said this was to prepare us for tomorrow. So is it because you're taking this as a resolution to Resolutions Committee, and you want us all to understand it before we ever get there? So we're not going to vote on it from the LP committee?
Well, we are, and here's the reason why. Jerry asked me, and I think Rolando had also asked from the LP committee, that because this is one of our legislative priorities, that we give our blessing to this, and so I think we can go ahead and give a vote.
Sure.
Thumbs up, and I think we've got enough people here now that we've got a quorum.
And if you want me to, I can just read the.
Why don't you go ahead and read it?
Well, yes. Okay. So whereas our United States Constitution delegates the authority to conduct and regulate elections to the state, the federal government and an anti-democratic and unconstitutional power grab is now attempting to completely give partisan bureaucrats control over our state election laws and strike down every reasonable voter integrity law in every state with legislation like HR 1 and HR 4. And I'm skipping over the whereas, okay? Texas is a battleground state and has been targeted by progressive Democrats, and other states look to Texas to lead in showing others how to protect our state election process. And the Texas Republican elected officials and grassroots activists have worked diligently for 8 months during the 87th legislative session and special sessions to ensure election integrity reform in the state of Texas. And this is in jeopardy of being derailed because of this potential overreach. The last whereas, Representative Mike Schofield has filed HB 19, which 71 Republican state representatives have signed on to as co-authors, and Senator Bob Hall has filed SB 82 in an effort to protect protect the integrity of our Texas elections from federal government overreach. Therefore, be it resolved, the SREC strongly encourages the passage of HB 19 and/or SB 82, since election integrity reform is imperative at this time and is supported by the supermajority of Texas Republicans. And then the last, therefore, be it resolved, is sent to all of our statewide elected officials, the speaker, senators, representatives, and our Senator Cruz, Senator Cornyn, and the whole Republican congressional delegation as soon as possible.
I move for
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. You can
Okay,
run it
I'm
over
sorry.
there?
Yep.
Okay.
Any debate?
Jill,
Go for it.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, we were just voting on, you're taking it over there to them?
Yeah, just
But
so.
don't we need to vote, to make it a part of our, as adopted as meeting one of our priorities?
Yeah.
Or do you think this is the same?
Well, I think it's just that our committee is supportive of it. And it doesn't matter what our priority is with election integrity is, if this doesn't pass, it's a moot point.
If the bill doesn't.
No, I'm just saying, our pattern has been, that as a committee, we have adopted bills
We have
that.
Right,
into our-
and we're,
So I'm saying do both, I'm not one of the
Oh,
other.
I see what you're
yeah,
saying.
the two
Okay.
bills, do the two bills meet the priority, would you say?
Well,
And-
no,
okay.
I wouldn't say it meets our priority, but
But in the bigger
in the
picture,
bigger picture, the
This-
priorities that we have approved
Yeah.
pertain
It
to our
protects
election
our
it protects our
integrity.
But just
Right.
back to the priorities are rather specific in what they're called to address.
yeah.
And this is more broad and
Right.
more specific.
So it wouldn't necessarily be appropriate for us to vote on those two bills, but we
I
can
don't
vote
think it was
on,
appropriate for us to vote
We-
on the resolution.
we-
just signed it individually.
yeah.
I have no opinion on that.
Okay,
okay, but we can, our vote was
Mhm.
to support this,
right,
the resolution, and
Right.
so you have our blessing.
okay, make a tell Rolando.
Okay, and Abraham is not here. If you see Abraham over there, will you ask him if he can come back here and give us a report?
I'm trying.
Thank you, Tanya. All right, so the other thing that I wanted for us to do today is I want committee reports on our active priorities, which of course are election integrity and religious liberty. And then I've got a little bit of an update on gender modification just because of the governor's statement. And then I wanted us to talk a little bit, just because our sessions are still live and active, that means we still push for our priorities, regardless, right? So we can talk a little bit about that and just strategy and kind of where we are. And then the third thing is we need to begin thinking about ballot proposition recommendations, because the resolutions committee is responsible for those ballot propositions for the primary primary election ballot, right? So that will be in March or May or whenever that is. So they will need to develop those, but because we're a legislative parties committee, we are charged with giving them some recommendations. So I wanted to kind of brainstorm a little bit about that today, and that should cover it. So just in time, so I'm going to ask. Let's shoot some check. So.
Now, this is really
warming
good.
up a little
We've
bit.
never, as far as I know, we've never done, worked on ballot propositions in anticipation. We always come up to the December meeting and we're all going, oh, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this.
Yeah, the nice thing is
And
we've
so
got
I'm
some time to do
For
that.
all of us to be involved in, I think that's a
Yeah.
really good thing.
Tanya, would you mind giving us an update on the election integrity?
Yes,
On the
so,
bill?
I'm sorry, y'all, I kind of checked out for a couple of weeks there. But, diving back into things, SB 1 was heard and passed in the third reading today on the House floor. It had 17 amendments added to it. So we're waiting to see if the Senate is going to concur. there were like 51 that were presented, so. So there was one by, a Democrat that, we're thinking will probably throw it into the conference committee, so, we'll have to wait and see what Chairman Dees says with that. So that is basically all, because I was gonna talk to y'all about the trigger bill too, because that was really important. So I guess all eyes and ears are on the Senate right now.
And one of my biggest concerns was that election integrity was gonna get watered down or compromised. And so I'm hearing really good things about the amendments that have been added, but it puts back the things that were in the Senate bill, which were swapped out when the House did the swap for HB3.
Oh yeah, does everybody know about that? Yeah, okay. So,
Yeah. So, I'm relying on those good reports, and Dion's happy. So if Dion's happy, that's generally a good sign.
Yes.
Right. So anyway, so
basically, and something too, I think we might have talked about this on a call, a while back, because I know at the beginning of session, our priority on election integrity points to state felonies. Like, that's what we were pushing for. We were pushing for state felonies. But through this process, if you impose a state felony on somebody that violates the law, you still have to have some kind of enforcement mechanism. And right now we're relying on our Attorney General and DAs to do this. And that is the problem. There's no real enforcement mechanism. So we've kind of shifted toward advocating for civil penalties, because that puts the ball in our court. Like whoever wants to file a lawsuit can do it. We don't have to depend on the DAs and the Attorney General. So
and that's the appropriate music for that.
yes. Right? Thank you, Terry.
On cue.
since Tom is not in here, do we have somebody who would mind just taking some notes for us to pass along to him? You're writing, so.
Are you doing it too?
You are too? Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to duplicate effort, so.
I can. I've already kind of started.
Okay, thank you so much.
I may have missed something.
I appreciate that. Okay. You know what, we didn't pray. Would somebody mind opening up some prayer?
Dear Father God, we just come before you right now, Father, acknowledging the majesty and glory of your name. Father, thank you. Father, we want to first ask you to be with the families of our fallen soldiers in Afghanistan, and Father, also those civilians that we don't know if they're American or we just don't know. Father, I just pray that you be with our leadership, Father, here and in Afghanistan. Father, as they make decisions that will affect the lives of so many people. Father, be with our work here today and tomorrow. Father, help us to look to you for guidance, not our own wills. And Father, may we all come together in such a way that it will be easy to see your power through our decisions. Father, we love you, and we just give you praise in all things. In your name I pray. Amen.
Thank you so much. I apologize. Abraham, would you mind telling us about what's going on with the priority bills?
Sure. So we have two bills, well, actually multiple bills, but we have freedom of conscience, we have women's sport, two major sets, right? So the freedom of conscience, we have SB 24, which is HB 142. They are similar to the regular session from SB 1674 and HB 1424. The women's sport SB 2, obviously, and the companion is 96. The 87 regular was the 29, SB 29. So the SB 29 now is SB 2, pretty much. So SB 2 has been going through the committee and all that stuff. So there are multiple bills after that, but they're all women's sport. They're split between like pre-K to just high school, and also college and things like that. UIL college, like SB 40 is the UIL college, and it's not. It hasn't moved much. So SB 2 is the. I think it's the big one that we might get. So that's what we're.
And the really frustrating thing is that bill was assigned to, Chairman Dutton's committee, right? The, Education Committee, chaired by a Democrat. And so, that gets us back to that issue of Democrats as chairs. Democrats have no business being chairs of our committees when we have the Republican advantage. So, that is very disappointing. I know Deborah went down and testified. Did anybody else go testify on the women's sports bill? I was so bummed I wasn't able to go to Austin this past week because I had prior commitments for speaking, and so I couldn't go. But I was in constant contact. I know Kathleen Wall was down there. I know, Concerned Women for America had a great representation. But Deborah, do you mind telling us a little bit about what it was like and just kind of your impression of the committee and where you think?
Well, we knew pretty early that the committee was stacked against us.
Yeah.
Huberty wasn't helping much.
That's right.
And, again, you're correct, Dutton. They really didn't have any rebuttal. The rebuttal over and over and over was, these transgenders commit suicide, and what's more important, a life than a trophy. And like I put in my Facebook page, honestly, I've never felt in a place that was more anti-Christ. They had 4- and 5-year-old boys in pretty hairstyles and dresses, putting them on the microphone. And, my heart was bleeding. It was just, it's so sad.
Yep.
It's the same people. It's 3 families that they came on the regular session, they came on the first, and they came. It's just 3 mothers who bring the same case.
Yeah, they brought 3 children, brought 2 children. So we kind of knew they just spent hours. We were there for 24 hours.
Yeah.
Speaking on 3 bills. So, and I was talking to Steve last night, and I never got to the end because we drove up. But so they didn't pass it, or is it still in committee?
As far as I know, it's still in committee. I reached out to Rhonda and to Chuck to ask them to please let their folks know in Huberty's district to call him and urge him to urge passage. But it's so frustrating that it's in that committee, or that committee has a den chair.
Yeah, so it's just I met Valerie, and I need to text her. And then Toad's bill, that's still in committee. Okay. So anyway.
Yeah. So and Tanya just said, do you mind saying that again?
Oh yeah, Huberty's not running for re-election, so he has nothing to lose.
I think I heard that. Yeah, I heard that.
But it is beyond me why somebody with an R after their name would not think that this is more than a reasonable thing to do is protect biological girls. I mean, what world are we living in when you are not for that? I mean, it's
And how
beyond.
many things have you said that about lately? What world are we
Right.
living in that
What,
this
you're
happened?
exactly
What world
right.
we lived in that happened?
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
It felt like
But to
nothing
protect,
we could say mattered, because
Yeah.
like the testimony was,
Yeah.
these 4 children, and the majority of them do commit suicide, that is a fact. But I don't think they're committing suicide because they can't play kickball or wrestle with a woman.
And you're right, and that's what the left uses to hold these parents hostage. I was down with some Republican women in Fort Bend on Wednesday evening, and there was a grandmother there, and I'll segue into my priority with this. There was a grandmother there who was telling me about her granddaughter, who was 15, who had had a mastectomy. And she said it was so horrible because her parents gave permission because her parents were so afraid they were being told by the medical professionals that this child would commit suicide. And it is, so the parents get held hostage by the fear that they're told. And you're right, it may improve the mood of these young kids or young people temporarily for a time, but it is a short-term fix, and it's certainly not a long-term solution. We know that. We know the stats bear that out for what happens when people do those kinds of surgeries. And so they're being held hostage, but you're right, there's always underlying other psychological issues that do not get addressed. And so,
Pretty obvious.
yes, that's very obvious. And it's also obvious that the parents have difficulty too. A lot of times the mothers, I think, particularly. So it's a tragic situation, and why our Republican officials, why our governor does not push harder for this is totally beyond me. So Governor Abbott did, you all saw, he made a request to Department of Family Services, and they did say that yes, the surgeries are considered child abuse. But we didn't get it added to the call for there to be anything added in family code, right, to expand the definition of child abuse, which I think we need, right? And then he didn't ask for an opinion about the chemicals, the puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. Now, I did see Representative Slayton wrote a letter asking for that, and then I think Representative Krause wrote a letter also asking for clarification on that. So, those are good things, but it's not enough. And so that's where that is. So I just encourage people, I was telling some folks last night, I feel like, to your point, Janice, I'm playing whack-a-mole because we've got, on one hand, we've got people losing their jobs or the threat of losing their jobs if they don't get a certain injection. We've got, things going on in Afghanistan. We've got the election, HR 1. I mean, it's just mind-boggling what else is happening right now. But, protecting our children is important. And so I think we continue that plea and those phone calls and those emails, and that's what I'll continue to put out in my priority reports. And I really appreciate you guys. I know Becky Green's not in here, but she sent me an email that she sent out to her district. It was fantastic on, our legislative priorities. I know Deborah does incredibly amazing emails. You did one on gender modification that was so good. And so I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate all your efforts, and I know others of you do the same. So thank you. Are there any other thoughts about our priorities for this session? Or I was talking with Mark earlier, school choice. As long as they're in session, we can continue to push. But I think maybe realistically, gender mod is the only one we might possibly, since the governor has at least spoken about it, that we might have a shot at getting, that added to the call at some point. I don't know, but maybe redistricting, maybe. Is he going to confine that session to just redistricting, or is he going to add? I don't know. Maybe it's how loud we yell, which it's frustrating that we have to yell loud for this. But
I was told it's going to be
just redistricting. Yeah. I'm not ever going to say never, but
the reps are not hopeful.
they're not. Yeah.
Well, if we don't get election integrity reform, he's committed to calling another special session. So that's another opportunity.
So that could be another opportunity. Yeah. Anything else on any of our policies? Okay. Well, let's talk about ballot propositions then. Let's talk about our so we get to make recommendations. Of course, it's resolutions committee charged to create those, and I got to do 2 of them last time. It was so fun. That was so cool to be able to write those. But we get to recommend. So let's just kind of go into sort of a working session, I guess, informal, and so people
On the
have
way up yesterday,
ideas. Yes.
Virgil and, Tom and I talked about all this and
Great.
And one of the things I thought would be good to start with is, what are we trying to achieve with ballot propositions? And crafting them, what are some guidelines? And these are the things that Virgil wrote down, that they should be short and simple. I have a chart that shows all of the propositions that we've done for a number of years back to the, several sessions. And I've compared it to the Democrats, so to see the difference in the way things go. But short and simple seems to work better. We're looking for something that we feel like will get a super majority. In other words, 65% maybe are better. That it's things that we want the legislature to know that their constituents are for this, so that we have that kind of momentum going into the next session. And because we're trying
And
to
I think
help the
that was the case
legislators
on
do. So we think about the things that we're not getting now, that we did not have ballot propositions for before, that we can put data into their hands. Ballot propositions also encourage participation in the people who they go, oh, they see it on the ballot, they vote on it, and they begin to think, that's something that I'm interested in, and we'll hopefully get more people involved in the political activism side of things. And then he wrote broad elements of party appeal. So I just wanted to share that so that we know that there is a purpose for why we do these, and kind of gives us something.
Yeah, and in the past, we have taken first our legislative priorities that we did not get accomplished, and that's basically the first, the first mini list we start with. And I think last term,
Let me ask you a question about that. Did we do it on just the ones, so did those not only not pass, but they were not on ballot propositions before, so we didn't have to do
no, they
that?
were.
So we already have the data, and it didn't make a difference?
Sometimes they've been reworded more clearly.
Okay.
Because the last term, that's one thing we did. Before that, they were like 2 or 3 sentences, and the way that they were worded was very confusing to people. So I know Mark Ramsey last time, said let's do one line, one sentence, clearly. Yes, I am for this, or no, I am not for this, kind of thing.
And I agree with, Okay, go on. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I wanted to clarify that. Yes, thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So SB 1.
Third reading.
Yeah. So, you know what, Tom, since you came in, would you mind calling roll really quick?
Sure.
Thank you so much. But be thinking about ballot propositions.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, good.
So, Jim Glover.
Here.
Charles Blankenship.
Yeah.
Stephen Stanley. Janice Holt.
Here.
Gwen Withrow. Chris Burrow. Joe Miller.
I'm proxy.
Okay. And who are you?
Susan Miller.
Susan?
Sue.
Sue?
We don't do boxes.
Yeah, I have a comment if you need it. Yeah, it doesn't matter on Fridays because we don't recognize proxies on Friday, but it will tomorrow. But you're welcome. You're welcome to be here.
Tom, was just the notes before you got here.
Yeah, I got it.
Got that?
I got that. Let's see, where are we? Okay. Abraham George. Tanya Robertson.
Here.
David Wiley. Susan Fountain.
Here.
Gail Standard. Gail.
Oh, yes.
John Chapman. He was here.
Yeah.
Frank Lopez. Carmen Calderon. Naomi Narvaez. John Kerr. Here. Carr. Mark Durazio.
Here.
Deborah Kelton Fight. Here. And Alma, were you added to this committee, or you're just sitting in?
Well, I belong to the legislative committees, don't I, priorities?
Well,
And I do have a voting power.
Okay.
They didn't strip me of that.
no, okay. Yeah, okay, because, you know, part of his discussion today, he added Deborah, I think, to the committee, right? Yeah, okay. Just checking. So that's it. We're good.
Yes, thank you so very much.
Pastor Roden and Deborah.
You didn't hear your name, did you call Terry Harper?
I think I'm on there.
I thought he went away.
No, he just stepped down his chair, he did not go away. He's still very much,
That's too easy.
very much present.
Still here,
Okay.
Still- Yeah,
just in case we need to call.
and I so appreciate that, I cannot tell you. I'm not gonna talk about Okay, let's go ahead and, while Tom's adding Terry back, let's go ahead and continue our discussion on ballot propositions. So do we have some suggestions on things that, topics that we would add to the committee?
Yes, I would, this subject matter was added by our chairman at the time that the session started, or before session started, and continues to be a huge issue, is executive overreach. How that would be worded, I don't have a clue, but there are a lot of Texans and Republicans specifically that are very interested in that issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Okay. Yes.
Madam Chair, as we had developed the list, would you look,
I thought I'd
Gail,
wait and
consider
just see
reading?
if there's something.
well, I mean, that gives you a starting point, and then people can add or whatever to it.
Okay. So, yes, ma'am.
I have a question just about the process.
Yes.
Having not done this before. You said that the resolutions committee actually does.
Yeah, we just,
the proposition.
they do the wording, they do the proposition.
then-
We just give them.
And we give them our thoughts, and then what happens after they do that? Then it comes to the full SREC as a proposition, as a,
Right,
As a resolution.
yeah, in the
yeah,
report.
and then we vote on.
And then we vote on them individually or collectively, or depends on what.
Usually there's a lot of debate.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
That was what, because the thing and I'm just gonna share this just as out there from last time, the things I heard. And so I'm just curious of how, and I'm just gonna pick this one because this is the one that I heard about the most.
It was the first
Was
one.
the wording on the Alamo cenotaph,
Oh, okay.
proposition.
Yeah.
You know, about how it was worded as opposed to, it was like leading the witness wording, you know, does that get is that what y'all
Yes.
discussed?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
all
Yes.
this.
A lot,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
I hate that, and that's what
Yes.
people say, well, they're just telling us, I mean, it's almost like you can't vote against it because you seem like
Right.
a horrible person if you do.
Yeah, no, there are, I mean, when we did the gender modification, I deliberately chose the words I used because I knew they were provocative,
Mhm.
and I wanted to get people's attention.
Sure.
And so, yes, we
Well,
do use the witness.
And that's, yeah, and
I
that's,
did.
yeah,
I mean,
and there are some cases where it's good to do that, but my point is that sometimes when you have it worded such a way, then are you really getting a true picture, or are you getting a molded picture of what the voters are saying? Do you, am I making sense? I don't know. And I heard that a lot. Well, I understand, but
Well, the nice thing about ballot propositions is I think they're also a tool to get conversations going.
I agree with
And
that.
so for example, on the gender mod, there were a lot of people who didn't know that little kids were being treated at the Genesis Clinic in Dallas. And so when people would say, oh my gosh, aren't y'all being hyperbolic with how you're, saying, and I said, no, actually, we know this is going on, and we wanted to put that on there so that we could educate.
Right.
So we can use those as tools to get conversations. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I think in this particular case, it's appropriate if we really believe in those issues.
Sure,
always
and
pull
I'm
that
not
up.
questioning any of that part of it.
Yeah,
I'm just, it really is more of a process kind of thought in
Yeah,
my head.
yeah.
It's like, do we, is that the intent
yeah,
to be hyperbolic?
yeah,
Is that the intent, or is it, or does that just kind of flow through sometimes?
yeah.
That's
No, it's intentional, but I thought you were gonna say number one, and now
I
my
don't even
mind,
remember which one.
My mind
That
was-
one, the first one that popped in my head was the monument.
my mind is mush right now. But I know a lot of people ask, I got phone calls asking about number one. Do you remember what it was? It was confusing to people because they weren't sure
Which way to vote.
way to vote. Oh man, what was that?
What was that, 2018?
And I do agree, in hindsight, we all knew what we meant, but, there
Was it
was some
2020?
confusion, so we have to be careful about that. But that's gonna be that's their job, and then on the floor, we get to fine tune it. So,
In 2018, they allotted Resolutions Committee 3 hours on Friday afternoon, and they used every
yes,
bit of
we
it.
did,
They had, it was 2 minutes to
That's right.
time certain,
that's right.
and
Texans should
because
not
they had to
restrict
decide
or
how
prohibit prayer in
many,
public schools.
and as well as what they're saying.
Yeah, it was about the prayer in public schools, yeah.
Texans should not restrict or prohibit prayer in public schools.
Yeah.
Yes, 88%, no, 11%.
Yeah, people got confused because we used a negative. Texans should not.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay, are you saying?
Yeah, what do we say?
We say yes or no, yeah.
Are we not saying that, or are we just saying that? Yeah.
So that, yeah.
In general, we have kind of said that we prefer not to do that.
Right, not to use those. All right, so, but topics-wise, let's get back to topics and let's start with our priorities. So, we don't know election integrity is looking really good, so we hope we can check that one off the list. Yes. School choice. And we didn't have school choice as the way it was worded in our priorities on the ballot proposition last time. We had parent.
I'll work up some words. I already asked for some help on that.
Great.
And I'll do that.
Okay, great.
Monument protection.
Monument protection.
That was mine.
So which one's number one, monument protection, number two?
After executive overreach, or like second, third? Can arm wrestle for that?
We might think of how to
Word
put it in a different term.
Yes. we will.
Again, this is, and I think that's where we can help the resolutions committee to be more effective if we're thinking about it now, because we've never thought about it this early. So the fact that this body has been working on these things so hard, you are the ones that know what, you've talked to the reps that have done polling on different things or whatever. We've talked to TPPF. We know what resonates on these different issues.
Okay.
I remember now what it was. It was that Texans should protect and preserve all historical monuments, artifacts, and buildings such as the Alamo Center, and should oppose any reimagining. That's two separate things.
Yeah.
That was what I was talking about. Yeah.
And unless you were clued in on the language
she was
that
just-
George P. Bush was using about the reimagining,
Yeah.
you may not.
Well, I understood all that, but I still felt like it was two
No.
different things. That,
Oh, gotcha.
Because I am like Sanderson Monument, and I'm all for that,
Yeah.
But I thought it should have just been separate. That was
Yeah. Okay.
on that.
All
So
right.
that's how I wanted to know what the process was.
Right.
So, and if we don't get the trigger bill, that should absolutely
For
be,
election integrity.
yes.
Yes. Yes. Good point. If there has been a ballot proposition in the past, should we have the same or similar topic on it again, or?
So what we've done in the past, we've, like, for instance, the life prop. There have been, when they were longer, when the propositions were longer,
We used to do
we
paragraphs.
did the whole litmus, all options are on the table, kind of, do you agree or disagree?
Right.
But after that, the next primary, we had one for just abolish abortion. It was very short, to the point, and succinct. So, you know, that was the same issue, but different language.
And Tanya, did you see was there statistical difference in the number of people who voted for abolish abortion over the previous kind of thing where it was all the different voices? So abolish abortion actually caught more people's attention. I mean, it would be an interesting.
I was a little shocked at the percentage that it got. It was actually
Based on what
it was actually the lowest.
Because we need to be cognizant of that when we put things on today to make sure that we're getting,
But it's
stating things so that they can vote in favor of what we want.
Well, but it's good to poll. To me, these are polls.
Oh, absolutely.
See how our base thinks about these issues, and that let us know, and let our legislators know, you know, what our base thought about that. So I don't necessarily think we need to write these to, you know, focus on issues that we think they would vote yes on. We just issues that are important, but and are coming up and are current, and get a poll on them. Get an opinion from our base voters.
It is my understanding that that's when they started doing this, that was not the take of the Republican SREC, you know, for traditionally. That it was to make sure we gave something to the legislators that so that we would have their back with data across the Republican.
And I heard that it was to drive our voters to the polls.
And that too.
Yeah,
We find the issues,
that would drive our voters to the polls.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's why that encouraged participation.
Yeah,
Was
definitely.
there a question in the back?
I'm sorry, I think she just answered it. I was wondering if we actually had true polling questions or we can use them to educate people. I'm in the Valley, and there's this false idea that Hispanics want illegal aliens voting. And when if you had a ballot proposition that said something to the effect of, do you believe non-citizens should select the representatives who tax you or
Yeah.
can tax you?
Yeah.
I think you'll find that that's actually, the left has painted a false narrative.
So yeah, I think that's great. I think that's
That really is. That just sparked an idea. Maybe take testimony from, take testimony from the opposition, and
How can we? They also support the wall. Just saying.
Right.
So how can we put that? Just border security?
Well, see, we've had a problem like that.
I know, it's gotta be more specific than
But
that.
it was the voter rolls, cleaning up the voter rolls of illegal voters.
So illegal voter representation?
Well, at this moment, the registration, the voter registration does not really ask for any proof other than you got a checkbox where you can check the references. That's it.
Right.
And anybody who's intended to register illegally, they will check that.
Sure.
So there's really no, even a text, no verification whatsoever. So we do have to clean up our work.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yep.
Did you want to?
I'll add one more thing. I'm sorry to interrupt y'all. The simpler the language, y'all are so educated in politics, you don't realize that things like voter rolls, that's such a simple word and we all understand it, but a lot of people don't. It needs to be simple. Should non-citizens, whatever you want to call them, be able to vote or something like that? Sophisticated language, like you were referencing it earlier, how reimagining, that most people don't understand that.
Right.
So.
I agree with her, but there was a law that was passed under George H.W. Bush that allowed anyone to register to vote, whether you were legal or illegal. And where the problem comes in is when you to vote, then that's a crime. So the law will need to be changed to, it's a crime if you register to vote and you are illegally.
Federal or here in Texas?
Federal. Yeah, one of my secrets told me about the law.
Yeah. Wow. That was, what were they thinking? What were they thinking?
Let me encourage Denaria, others of us who have some ideas about how to word things. We need to be giving that to the resolutions committee now, just like we're talking about this. Yeah, everything is written. Help them do what they'll be very happy about it. Some of the other things that we did talk about, we had gender mod, of course, we've got to have that on there, and I don't know, you probably have a really much better way for us to put it on there so that people know it's happening. I mean, you would understand how to do that, and you can do that. On mine, taxpayer-funded lobbying, which is, I think, incredibly important for passing everything. I'm sorry.
I agree with you.
But what we're finding is that people see taxpayer-funded lobbying, and they think that it's lobbying on behalf of the taxpayers.
Really?
Yeah, the nomenclature is not good among even Republican voters who are not involved at any level.
We get so wrapped up in our activism that we forget that others don't understand what we're even talking about sometimes.
So on that one, you're going to see some pretty dramatically different language if I can come up with them, and I've been talking to TPPF about what their polling has shown. Conscience protection. And that's a kind of a twofold thing for education and healthcare. I don't know if that,
Actually, all of it religious too.
Yes,
Because that's a major gap.
just as the electric grid, do we need to work on that again? I mean, do we need to tell them they need to do more?
Yeah, a lot of people do think the religious freedom is for the people who actually go to church. It takes a long conversation for a lot of people to understand that. It's not about somebody who goes to church, it's about religious freedom and having conscience freedom. Even people who are like preaching church. I have preaching church in Collin County talking about it, saying they don't believe.
So can you think of language that would be more universal?
Yeah, we gotta figure something out.
So in 2018, we had a platform plank, religious liberty platform plank that was freedom of conscience, and I'd like to revisit that. I mean, that's the one that we worked on with Debbie,
Right.
and revisit that and maybe shorten it and critique, the language to where it's a freedom of conscience priority across the board.
I think that will resonate with more people who are not active like we are. They understand, okay, well, that does make sense, freedom of conscience versus freedom of religion, because a lot of Americans who are even Republicans does not believe in specific God or not active at any specific church. They feel like we're like churchgoers who's trying to push something on them.
Well, and I mean, this is sort of related, but even this thing about employers right now requiring the shot, and people wanting to submit a or ask for an exemption based on religious objections. I'm so ambivalent about that, because on one hand, I hate for employees to have to even, ask for that. I think they should be protected and not even have to ask for it. So I hate being put in that position, because then, theoretically, then you got a list of the religious the religious people who have not taken the vaccine, and then everybody else who has, and we're already creating various classes, and so that's very concerning to me. But, you know, but I know that there are, I think most companies are accepting those religious exemptions, but I've heard some are not.
Not healthcare companies, like Baylor wouldn't do it, Methodist in Houston wouldn't do it.
Okay.
So even religious freedom, religious reasons used as the reason for not taking a vaccine in Baylor.
Well, I did hear somebody at Baylor's Cut and White. I heard somebody who did get one.
Oh, they did.
But I think it was because of the way they wrote it, and so unless you know how to do it, then it may not be good enough. And
You can't say,
that's not right.
My religion doesn't believe in that. You can't just say that.
No, and just as an aside.
The religions specifically have to prohibit.
Right.
If just because you don't believe in it doesn't mean
That's not a religious exemption.
Right. You have to specifically
Yeah.
say, and you have to reference something back to it in the specific passage or whatever.
Right. That's what I'm hearing is you have to back that up with either Bible verses or other verbiage from whatever your document happens to be. But the person who I talked to who got one had used scripture, and the thought was, you know, they may think that would be the thing, if they get sued, that may be the thing that, you know, would cause them to lose, cause the healthcare company to lose. So I don't know, but it is very concerning, and I agree with you. So, I'm gonna grab my lunch, y'all. I'm sorry. I am about faint.
Go back to the
But
tax
something
payer
eating
funded
while you do that.
lobbying for a second.
Yes, ma'am.
So I attended a training in Stewart, it's county commissioners and county judges. And attended one of the sessions, and the guy from TAC was up there scaring the county judges that look what they're doing to you. They're gonna leave you defenseless in Austin. It was just fear.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these county judges and commissioners are moral.
I have a letter in Brown.
Okay. Yeah.
Where there's 5 lives.
Okay.
And I take it to the legislators and I say, okay, you know what this bill says, and this is what your people are being told.
Yeah.
But somehow I think reaching that level, we've got to reach that level to let them know that
They're being lied to.
yeah.
Yep. I agree.
I can send you a packet, my minister and he put one together for our church for religious exemptions.
Yeah.
But he also attached one because he wants, you know, not being a member, you know, we'll get some through, but he had attached one that although we're members, we went another avenue and it was $39 and we got our religious exemption, and so I have all, I can send you and you can send it out, but it's all put together.
But
Merrill Lynch is another big company whose October 1st is the last day.
really, if you don't.
Well, Merrill Lynch and Goldman Sachs.
And Goldman Sachs too, of course.
I'm just gonna throw this out there because I've forwarded this to so many people, I can't even tell you, it is so helpful. I get a weekly email, and I'm not saying this to be controversial. I get a weekly email from Gap, and this one week, he sent these resources for exemption that is just mind-blowing.
Yes.
I'll be happy to forward it to anybody. Has numerous links to hundreds of resources that you can use to file exemptions.
Yes.
I've looked at that.
I saw that too. I'm so glad you brought that up, and we still have another conversation about that. But he absolutely is fighting for our religious liberties and our freedom of conscience, and they did give great resources.
Yes.
So thank you for bringing that up. Yes. Okay, other ballot proposition idea. We'll generate
Something on taxes.
On taxes?
That's
Property
all.
taxes?
Property
or-
taxes are, you know, we need to make the next step.
You know,
Can we include something about the appraisal districts?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because to me, that's where the crux of the matter is, because we, I'm on a school board, and we could lower our rates, but if the values are, and that's an arbitrary board with no accountability except for the people who put the members on, but there's no overreaching accountability. So I would love to know the pulse of the state on that.
But we can't attack that.
No, you're not
That's
attacking it.
that. I mean, we can't, the ideal is to do away with it. So we could put that on there, okay? Eliminate it.
Do away with
HCAT,
it. Okay.
or, the CAT, the county.
Appraisal district.
Appraisal district. But in order to do that, we've got to change how we do taxes,
That's,
right?
yes, it's all.
It can't be based
Yes,
on
it's all-
property evaluations. So anyway, but that is all tied together, property taxes, HGAT. But what do we need to put on the proposition? But we need to have some sort of tax.
So we've had
That's right.
eliminate property tax, which was very general, and then we've had the one, in 2018 was, that eliminated the M&O. And people don't understand.
They don't
what that
know,
is.
but I guarantee you they know appraisal district.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
if we can say something along the lines of, holding them accountable,
The electoral appraiser.
what?
The electoral appraiser, the chief appraiser.
Yeah.
It'd be an elected board, yeah.
Right, because now there's no
There
accountability.
was a bill in the legislature to have every representative on the board be an elected official, and it was dinged in the Senate.
Yeah. So, anyway, that just needs to be,
There is an ethics code.
because then you can take, as we do all of them, that's
There
an
it is.
excellent tool to take to the legislature to say, here's what they're saying.
Yeah, you just gotta keep
Gotta do
acting.
something about it.
The other thing.
Yes, sir.
Joe, Thursday, the Freedom Caucus had the phone call, and they mentioned HR 72 or 78.
I was just thinking about that.
Could the language and the intent of that resolution be put forward to the public? The public needs to be able to weigh in.
What's the number
And
again?
this
HR
would,
72.
take the excess taxes, and, this is way too much to put in a resolution, but the background is, you take the excess, taxes and you pay down the M&O, the school M&O.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
that's, and you do,
That's something
they say
different
that
from what I
it's
thought
not
you were talking about.
within 20 years, apparently the revenue stream would be such that the counties wouldn't have to.
Yeah, that's something
collect
different.
property taxes.
Yeah, that's
for
the
the
buy-in.
I think that's actually,
TPPF came up.
HB is a resolution, HR. You won't even get a hearing.
Yeah.
This time, so we need to put it to the public.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, sir.
So the consensus of going to the consumption taxes and going away with all the other taxes, is that still in our platform?
It is still in our platform, right?
There was a
Just
bill,
having the consumption tax on the regular tax.
Yeah.
House Bill 122 was to
That
reduce
might be
school
the
maintenance
easiest sell for us.
M&O
You know,
through surplus revenue.
take all the taxes out,
I'm sorry?
go with the sales tax.
HB 122 was reducing school M&O through use of surplus state revenue.
Yeah, that's the same idea.
And it's in appropriations committee now.
Say the number one more time, I'm sorry.
HB 122, the second session.
But in the meantime, I still think a proposition about the appraisal,
Yeah.
because the chances that that's gonna happen,
Right.
you know.
I know. They'll take a new governor.
Yeah.
All right. Any other, it's $1 billion industry. Yes, ma'am. Any other, yes, sir.
Term limits, lawyers out of work.
Oh, another topic is the Marxist, Antonio Gramsci Marxist critical race theory.
Critical race theory.
Those kinds of things. This is permeating, it's coming out of the teacher colleges, starting at Columbia University in New York, spread throughout the country. It's in the schools. You can talk to your school superintendent, they'll say, no, we don't do that kind of left-wing stuff. But all the teachers they're hiring to bring that with them. So you want your kids taught Marxism, that would be the dollar proposition.
Is that in our platform, Mary? So we gotta
It
get
is. Yep.
It was new.
It is new. It was new at convention. I remember, I was like, what is that?
I don't
Me too. I was like, what are they talking about?
Aren't we glad we put that in there? Yes, sir.
I apologize if I go back over something that's already happened. My hearing was shot, and I've only just over half of what's been said.
Mine too.
But back to something Gail said earlier about getting what the constituents want their legislators to do. One of the things I discovered, this is my first year to actually be much involved in state legislature. I spent 25 years in Washington, D.C. under different sets of orders and discovered how bad that government is. And I can tell you, my experience this year is our state legislature is not much different. And one of the things I discovered is that the people don't have a clue what's going on in the legislature. In fact, some of our elected officials don't know what's going on. I've talked to precinct chairs who don't have a clue what Texas legislature online is, and some county chairs. The rubber meets the road in the precincts. That's where we need to beat the bush to get people out, educate them, and register them. Do we have a coordinated game plan on how we are going to do our public relations with the people at the grassroots level and how we're going to get people out? Because this year, for me, I didn't get any training like that. I think we need a coordinated plan to do that.
That is something the RPT is working on, and they do have, they're charged with that, and, I mean, the staff, and yes, they're doing that.
And we only got constitutional carry and heartbeat bill passed because people actually got on the phone and called and called and called.
That's right.
Before that,
That's right.
people in legislative priorities
But-
worked their rear ends off back and forth with
Right.
legislators.
And that's
Let
why-
them walk out the door and they say, okay, thank you, we're going to get back to
That
this.
is why we switched strategies this year. And so back in the fall, you know, when we were first kind of thinking about the direction of the committee and how we were going to do things, that's why we shifted to, and I so appreciate how Chairman West elevated the priority of this committee to be able to go out across the state and for all of us to go and speak and educate our folks on legislative priorities. And we have folks not on our committee. I know Deborah has, and Janet. Are you officially on the committee or no? You are on the committee. Okay. I can't remember.
I called you the role.
You did, okay. I'm so sorry. My brain, can I just tell you, I'm fried my brain. I think Janice worked so hard, and I don't even remember what, she's
Does that mean I don't get paid?
I mean,
you don't get your paycheck. Okay, I just think Janice worked so hard, and she's on your working group, right?
who's that? Janice?
Janice Holt, I'm on the
Thank
legislative
you.
party.
So nice to meet you. I apologize. Yeah, okay. Sorry. So not much thing, but, but Deborah has been working, and I know we've had, other folks doing great stuff. And so I think all the SREC is charged with educating, but especially our committee. So yes, that's why we're doing it differently, and certainly I think it behooves us to train people in our districts to do what we do. And I've got several people in my district who can go give my presentation just as well as I can, So we share the PowerPoint. Yeah, that's right. You did redo the PowerPoint. Okay, stop. I'm going to rub it in anymore. Yes.
I even went to Ghana and tuned in from Ghana.
I know. I'm sorry. I just always thought you were so silly. No.
I'm just messing with you.
I know you're okay. But my point is that we switched gears this year, and it's for those reasons. And so we still are in the process of training people and educating people, right? So yes and yes. Yes and yes. And I really hope that this committee, after I'm long gone, that now the direction of the committee will be to do what we've done, because I think it has proved an incredibly effective response in engaging our grassroots. So, yes, sir, and then, yes, sir.
Okay. Question, yes, there are a lot of, I guess you call them grassroots organizations, small, bunker clubs, women's groups, county parties, that are always looking for speakers and always looking for things to talk about.
Yes.
And I would think it'd be worth your while to try to reach out to them. Myself, I'm president of Southeast Republicans. I know we're always digging around for people to come to speak to our meetings and draw a crowd.
Yes.
We had Jill to Bell County to speak to us.
Yeah. So do you
want chopped liver?
Seriously,
At least you're on the committee.
You take a lot more than that. But, and yes, and you know, I was, Karen is the new pachyderm outreach, and I was giving her a hard time this morning because I'm like, I've never had a pachyderm ask me to come speak. So, yeah, so.
Pachyderm asked me to speak.
Well, okay, I stand corrected then. We did get an LP committee member to go speak to pachyderms. I was wrong. I didn't think we ever had gotten an invitation. And you've been
in Galveston.
Okay.
You've been in Galveston.
Okay, so I mean,
We're all working, let's just say
Right.
that, we're all working.
Okay. The point is we're all working. That's the point. Yes, sir.
So Jill, I wanted to just give you practical feedback. I went to the December meeting, and that's where you laid this all out. I went home and did an overlapping ovals. You had your committee, Susan Fountain's organization committee, and Alma Jackson's outreach committee,
Yes,
all
sir.
working on the same thing. I went home and showed this to our county chair,
Yeah.
and we modified our scripts, and we put, one of the things we give to all our block walkers to have in the car with them is the platform that they, priorities. And so this is, there's a lot of moving parts, and we're coordinating better. We're in better shape now than we've ever been, but we've got to keep the momentum up.
We gotta keep the momentum up.
You said it perfectly, but at the beginning, this legislative priority team has been like no other, because it's, when we get the information, you set out the information, and through all the lines, people know. So it's easy to get up at a group, a Tea Party group, Republican Women group, luncheon, and you know, release this information. I had no idea. I mean, I came into this clueless on some of the disconnects, and Matt Rinaldi has uncovered so much, and so that's our power right now is the grassroots, and you providing that information is the link for everybody to push it through.
Yes, sir.
There's two sides to the coin of getting our legislative priorities passed. We've talked about one side. The other side that I grant you, I'm a fighter. I'm ready to fight, and that is we were cut off at the pass by some of the chairs of the committees, and we have got to fight against that. And the only way I know how to fight is to tell the voters what they did. Now, I don't know if we can do that.
Yes, sir.
But you take.
Well, now remember, we've got our assessment report online, and even though it's not weighted online on the official RPT site, they can still look at their page for their rep, or you can send them the page for their rep. And some of those pages are very self-explanatory. You look at it, and there's zeros, or there's just no information on there that they supported any of our priorities.
And I understand that, Jill. I'm more concerned about another step involved.
Okay.
We get the stuff published out there so people understand what the issue is.
Right.
But within the district of those chairs that were fighting against us, we ought to enlist some folks to go out and carry that message to that district.
Gotcha.
Here.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement.
Yes.
I'm ready to fight.
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And yes. Yes.
Having a Speaker of the House that's elected by the Democrats, minority, is unthinkable.
It is
and
unthinkable.
We've done it 3 times now.
And
when are we going to quit doing that?
And to that point, I don't know if y'all remember this or not, but one of the first legislative priority reports I put out, I made a big deal about the fact that we had DIM chairs, and I got some flack for that. I got, couple of the reps were like, well, we're trying to work across the aisle, blah,
They don't want to
blah,
cross
blah,
the aisle.
blah. And of course, our response is, the Dems would never do that if we had the majority, right? Well, here, and I know some of y'all got feedback and flack for standing up and saying that too, and I know I know Chairman West did at the time. Well, all those folks are singing a different tune now. And now everybody, pretty much that I'm hearing from, and certainly Chairman Rinaldi is now saying, we've got a real window here. And so that was one of the last things I wanted to just encourage you about is let's continue and let's raise this drumbeat of doing something about these Democrat chairs and urging Speaker Phelan to remove these folks. And let's not make this mistake again, right? Let's not make this, because we've seen it is truly hobbled us this legislative session, and we have been proven right. So, yes, ma'am.
HR 72?
Yes. HR
Has
72.
been filed.
Yes.
I stopped by,
HR 72, I was having trouble with this. HR 72 is a procedure, it's a rule change.
Yes. And the House, it's in House Admin Committee,
right.
And Will Metcalf is the chair of that committee. Right. So let's please, I put this on Facebook, but I'm going to be putting it in the LP report from Monday. But let's please encourage phone calls to Chairman Metcalf and urge him to pass HR 72 out of his committee, because they can do that rule change anytime.
so Tom and I stopped by that office.
Good.
And gave them, a very nice overview of all the reasons that we thought was important, and we're able to talk to Daniel Casey, who is the chief of staff. And that's another thing that's going on right now in the House. There's not much staff there.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get anybody on the line, it's somebody pretty high up. You don't get stopped by the little intern at the door right now, so it's a great time to be going. And so this is moving very rapidly.
And we got a sweet spot. We got
Yes,
a window.
absolutely.
I was talking to one of my counterparts today, and in the Texas Constitution, under Article 3, Section 10, quorum, adjournments from day to day, compelling attendance. 2/3 of each house shall constitute a quorum to do business, but a smaller number may adjourn from day to day and compel the attendance of absent members in such manner and under such penalties as each house may provide. So, they were talking to me this morning about it, and I thought it was a really good idea. These Democrats who aren't showing up, the penalties can be to eradicate their pensions.
Right.
Yeah.
Eradicate their what?
Their pensions.
Yes.
And that can be done. Since they're doing that.
Yeah,
can
they
be
can
done.
remove their seniority effective day one.
Yeah.
But will they?
And in this bill, and never to regain, they
Yes.
never catch back up.
Yes, and we don't we don't just want a monetary slap on the hand, because they'll pay those and they don't care. But pensions are a different matter, because that's why a lot of them keep, wanting to rerun and stay in there to get their pension.
It's not the $6,000 or $7,000 a year they make.
It's not the
No.
You're exactly right. It's yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I was there on Tuesday for the CRT, and the chairman was Dutton, Harold Dutton, in there from Houston, a Democrat. And one of the things that I noticed was anyone that was going against Representative Todd's bill, they were given between 4 to 6 minutes to speak against that bill, but those of us that were for the bill, we were only given 2 minutes to speak. And I believe that, of course, I went over, and I don't think that's very fair to the rest of us. And when I was in there, I was listening to everybody, and some of them were saying, "You be very nice, don't get rude to him, speak very nicely," and that's the last thing you have in your mind, because these people have been treated with kid gloves, especially with the CRT and BLM.
Right.
And I said, no, they need to hear the other side.
Right. Yeah.
And we need to do something about the timing and everything that are, for those bills too.
Yeah.
We ran against that when we were testifying before the legislature, and it was Pastor Brody said, look, you are unfair in your time, and they exposed the whole committee, and then they adjusted the time.
That's awesome.
He did it right then, right there, and then they adjusted it.
All right, any more ballot proposition ideas, thoughts?
10-day rule, term limits, states' rights. I don't know that the.
Heather?
Now, we've done one for states' rights, but it's been two primaries. It's been, no, it was 2018. I think we did a states' rights, but it certainly could be run.
A new one with a new perspective because of what we're facing as the federal government now. And
yes,
and we've kind of talked about that in other ways with the trigger bill, but so 10-day rule, I'm not sure that's so complicated, but it was mentioned.
Okay. Well, we can put this list together, and thank y'all so much. I don't have anything else. I know there's stuff going on in resolutions. I know I have two over there that I'm really interested in what's happening with. So, and you've got, election integrity. I know they've got quite a few, so I'd love to run over there. But thank you guys so much for everything today, and I appreciate all of you so much. And
Before you adjourn, as an LP committee, and we work in the legislature, and if there are no more special sessions, does that mean that our work is sort of?
No.
What are we going to do now between now and?
Yeah, no, we have to put together a document on, we're going to put, just like what Mark Ramsey did before. Do you remember what he did with the recommendations, things that worked, what they learned? So we're going to put together that document. So we've got more to do.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thank y'all.
Can the guests leave too?
Yes, you have to stay after.
For insubordination. Why was that not the first time I've ever heard that? I heard that before. I'm not surprised. Did you make a trouble? I think my first grade teacher started that.
I'm so sorry. I don't know how much. To my defense, I think we had 9 years.
Yes, no excuse. You're getting on me for 19 months.
No, are you kidding?
Have you seen our shirt? I know, as soon as you said that, what is that? Oh, it's my house. What about the best internet? Is it any better? Or is it any better? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. As long as we can. Okay, that's fine. As long as I don't care whose it is, I just want to pass it. Okay, thank my daughter did that.
That's why I'm ISIS.
I've done that 2 years ago. As long as we don't.
How's admin meet tomorrow?
Remember what you and Jerry on that motorcycle? Thanks for the conversation we
It's meeting on Monday at 4 o'clock.
All the defenses are just going harder into the Constitution. You know,
It's like starting a new church. You've got to go out and get new converts. You can't get them to work in the traditional system. You're not going to work that long term.
I mean, there was some Texas city.
That's a whole industry. You gotta get through. You can't work with people to do what we're doing now. They're not very effective. After, once everything else fails, that would be decided on the spreadsheet before starting the arm resolution. That's what the South did. They did who attacks first instead of all there. Well, no, I didn't want these people attacking. It's my understanding they started to
The South. You know,
it'll be the same thing.
Is it safe to assume we are doing?
I think so.
Okay, well, good enough for me.
yeah.
Just being stupid. For a year. Anyway,
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You know, this thing of the state sovereignty, that immediately brings you into conflict with David here in July at the COS. With all the big things there. You know, the COS,
Yes.
so we should never be against each other. Actually, we oppose the effort, but even if we get the amendment, they're going to still need an enforcement mechanism. Because the bad behavior which is our problem, it's not the Constitution, Constitution is not the problem. It's just the failure to abide by it. So when they go and modify the Constitution again, if they do the whole thing, if just go down and balance the budget, they're gonna ignore that too. And so they're gonna need the state sovereignty act, all the states need to stand up for
That's what they told me to know, that that's even the problem. Why is it?
So as soon as we start pushing and try to crash the state sovereignty, and what the actions should be to support that. They should be as much as supportive of enforcement. One of the things that we have you can sell out people on so anyway, the water's just swimming anyway.
You got a school zone.
And a shark infest.
Oh, I gotcha. Yes, I do. That's exactly just what you first.
It's not reset up, to go back to fix things up there.
There's, without consequences, everything we're doing, we have this now. I mean, I'm just completely disgusted. That's not something you would think. Who would have absolutely thought there would be no investigation unless? I thought you would.
Well, he's from Houston.
I'm just getting tired of it, and I've told this to several people.
So he was returning for like 10
because it's not big. It's huge, because if everybody thought they were going to be investigated, no matter what the result of the election is, for their actions, they wouldn't do this. Plus, that woman should never be able to be a town secretary or a city secretary. She should lose her ability to do that, or be a secretary of election either early elections or civilian elections. There should be consequences, and it doesn't. They train these corrupt people to do this.
And here's Kelly. They went to it's just that they said
They're meaningless.
There was a law that there was a bill that had failed.
Where's the whole thing?
She's a teacher. He taught her. So he's not allowed to. You're getting married? Or you got married? You got married. Yeah. But you've never brought her around? That's what you nobody there.
You know, but you don't know this morning.
My first one. Starbucks.
Should trigger the investigation.
Where are you from?
3 hours later.
Well,
Are you involved with what the original game plan together for how we get information out?
Oh, no, I am not a part of that. I'm not sure I'm part of it. I got sent an email out saying, I am not going to.
Yeah.
I'll say it.
That's great.
Yeah, I'm not saying, Tanya has recommended that I become a member of this city, which also recommended. Hello.
Ellis.
Well, yeah, so we got Jake finally sworn in, we got our state rep. So Ellis County, we've been without representation. Yeah, January.
Once a year.
And we're trying to
I'm
find
gonna
a
get a ticket,
Merrill
I'm gonna take the class,
Kevin
it's
Brady
on speed for the rest of the year. So to me, it's a fee of speed.
Oh, that's right, everybody knows that. I went to a big place.
Yeah.
They basically claim, they're claiming.
Of course, once you get caught.
All of them is,
But anyway, so I guess.
they didn't even realize that the borough was in the district.
So we have to do this.
Ah, yeah.
So,
Election integrity, where's the FDA?
right here. Yeah, I think we're gonna do, it'll be good, yes. There's 700,000 people, you can't be everything for everybody. Yeah, we're.
This is election integrity, this one is election integrity.
Well, there's 10 guys running in our state.
And then there's, CRC at 2 somewhere, I don't know where it is.
Oh, great.
But if I were doing 2 things, I'd start thinking.
I like it simple.
What are we doing tonight?
I think, for me, I have to do 2 things.
I don't know if there's something official in front of me.
Yeah.
If I do
Take the discussion.
distracted by my.
But you're in
If I do 2 things, then I have to focus on one. But that works for me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll call you or email back.
So far, I mean.
I don't know, I might be going to my friend today.
Okay.
Well, it's nice to meet you. I'll just wait for. Well, we have a resolution in your store, right?
Yes, sir. What's your boss? Everybody offers that job, so I appreciate it. I appreciate it, sir. Anytime you need.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Generic.
Well, it looks like Janeria the ice. Thank you for your consideration. It's a family name. I would say Carter. It's Carter. I know, I have all my life.
Yeah, me too.
Me too.
Of course, my first name is Jane.
There you go.
Oh, yes, I was just, no, I was just backing up, I was moving.
Or you can leave it for the next person.
No.
So how do you pronounce it?
Genera, like
Generic. Just
Genera.
like Noah.
Yeah.
What time is it?
It's,
Oh, we got
my family name, my grandmother's name.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she said Genera, no I. So.
Now run across another J.
Are you, you're not, are you
I
election?
bet you never run across another K.
No, I haven't.
You know, it's funny, I think it's, I saw it, they quoted you in one of the
At the end of the year
papers,
and here's.
and they totally got your name all screwed up. I was like, that's not how it's spelled.
Every so often, the news stations in Hampton call.
Yeah.
They can't get a hold of the county jail.
Yeah, I think that's what it was all on the news station. I'm like, no, it's KDR in the car.
What is that? What type is that? German?
You know, for years I thought it was German, it's Scottish.
Oh, okay.
Did you remember, were you old enough to remember the Charles in grade school?
Yes, but I didn't see it.
Part of that movie was filmed at Forest Castle, which is in Kelso, Scotland.
Okay.
The Duke of Roxburgh is a case.
Oh, okay, there you go.
My wife and I went to Scotland a few years ago. And you go to Kelso. So I'm going to show you.
I need it.
So I pulled out my driver's license. I said, it's not me. And you know, they didn't think that was different. Oh, they really. Oh, man. All right, guys. And then I set off their jobs. Yes, they were glad to see me leave.
Wow, that's something. Okay. Oh, great.
And your last name?
It's Lewis. No, it's yeah, my maiden name is Gobert, G-O-B-E-R-T. Well, my dad's actually German, adopted by French. So I just, it was horrible. Mary is very like my middle name's Lee, it's spelled L-E-A. That's clear to most people, so yeah, it's just, yeah, now, here's the next short for my middle name, I'm married to Lewis.
I think they're so narrow, I couldn't get one.
No, he went on vacation, that's why we had a deadline.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I have, so that's why I say, he's fine with it, because he's amazing.
So you got it, they have that. I mean, I tried, I couldn't tell the finish line, I couldn't crazy. From like St. Louis,
yeah, she has a different version.
Where can you, yeah.
It's a seal. Maybe we won't have to wear them. We can say, we can add to it, we did it.
Oh, that's cute. That's really good. Oh, just red tape. Wow. They're doing election integrity.
See me at the meeting in December. I'll bring red. A lot of nice people. The election integrity.
He is on the run.
It's amazing because so now we're discussing well, I'm old enough now to retire, so
I'm not listening to you.
but here's the deal. My husband said, I have some close friends. From everything else I do, we just can't. We resign from the SREC. I won't be active in supernumerary like I am.
Yeah.
But in a person, she's like growing up. I'm just doing any of that. It was so much. School board, I would resign from people. Yeah. I'm gonna make those.
That's right, Daddy.
I feel like overconfidence.
I love that.
I tell you, you've been learned well. I've been learning.
And now, I went, actually, I knew he was going to be there. When they warned us, they were going to say, remember not to come to the airport, we need to go. As a civilian, I knew it was some awful stuff happening, you know. But that's what we were doing. No, I mean, civilians and we're all it's going to be a you're not even